Theodore's heart stopped the moment Julian's lips brushed his. A fleeting kiss stolen in the shadows of their family's sprawling Connecticut estate. At 18, he thought he'd found forever in the boy who'd become his stepbrother, only to have his world shattered when his father's fist met his jaw hours later. By dawn, Theodore was on a bus to nowhere, disowned for daring to love the son of his stepmother. 5 years had passed, and Theodore Kane, now 23, stood on a Manhattan rooftop, the city's pulse thrumming beneath him. The memory of that night still burned, but he'd rebuilt himself, bartender by night, aspiring artist by day, scraping by in a Brooklyn studio apartment. His paintings, vivid bursts of color and raw emotion, had just started catching eyes in local galleries. Yet, no amount of success could erase the ache of Julian's absence. The boy who'd been his everything before their family tore them apart. Theodore adjusted his navy blazer, nerves jittering as he scanned the crowd at the gallery opening. It was his first major showcase, a chance to prove he was more than the kid kicked out for loving wrong. The rooftop buzzed with art critics, collectors, and hipsters sipping overpriced wine. He caught his reflection in a glass panel, green eyes sharp, dark hair a control mess, a face that turned heads but hid a heart still mending. "Nice work, Theo," a voice purred behind him. He turned to find a critic, Clara Voss, her sharp bob and sharper gaze sizing him up. "Your pieces feel personal, like you're bleeding onto the canvas." Theodore forced a smile, deflecting with charm. "Guess I've got a lot to say." He didn't mention that every stroke was a scream, a memory of Julian's laugh, his touch, the way he'd whisper Theodore's name like a prayer. As Clara droned on about emotional authenticity, Theodore's eyes snagged on a figure across the roof. Tall, chestnut hair, a tailored sweater hugging broad shoulders. His breath hitched. Julian. It couldn't be. But those warm brown eyes locked onto his, and the world tilted. Julian Whitmore, his stepbrother, the boy he'd loved and lost, was here. Their eyes held for a heartbeat too long, a silent storm of longing and pain. Then Julian turned away, vanishing into the crowd. Theodore's chest tightened. Had Julian come for him, or was this just cruel chance? He excused himself from Clara, weaving through the throng, desperate to find him. He caught up to Julian near the edge of the rooftop, where the city's lights glittered like a promise. "Julian," Theodore said, voice raw, barely above a whisper. Julian froze, his back to Theodore. "Theo," he replied, not turning. "Didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect you to show up at my exhibit." Theodore's heart pounded. "Why are you here?" Julian turned, his face a mask of restraint, but his eyes betrayed him grief, love, regret. "I saw your name in a review. I had to see if it was really you." Theodore stepped closer, the air between them electric. "And now that you know it's me?" Julian's jaw tightened. "I don't know. Theo. I don't know what this means." Before Theodore could respond, a woman's voice cut through. "Julian, darling, there you are." It was Elise, their stepmother, her platinum blonde hair gleaming under the string lights. Her smile faltered when she saw Theodore. "Oh, Theodore." Theodore's stomach dropped. Elise, the woman who'd stood by as his father threw him out, now looked at him like he was a ghost. "Elise," he said coolly, his voice steady despite the rage simmering beneath. "You've done well for yourself," she said. Her tone clipped, eyes flicking to Julian. "We should go. Julian. Your father's waiting." Julian hesitated, his gaze lingering on Theodore. "I'll catch up, Mom." Elise's lips thinned, but she nodded and left. Theodore's pulse raced. "You're still under their thumb." "Huh," he said, unable to keep the bitterness out. Julian flinched. "It's not that simple. Theo. You don't know what it's been like." "Then tell me," Theodore pressed, stepping closer. "Tell me why you didn't fight for us. Why you let them rip us apart." Julian's eyes glistened, his voice breaking. "I was 18. Theo. I was scared. I thought you'd be better off without me." Theodore's throat tightened, the old wound splitting open. "I wasn't. I'm still not." For a moment, they stood there, inches apart, the city's hum fading to nothing. Julian reached out, his fingers grazing Theodore's hand, a spark of the past igniting. "I never stopped loving you," Julian whispered. Theodore's heart surged, but before he could speak, a camera flash blinded them. A photographer, snapping candids for the gallery's social media, had caught their moment. Theodore's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a fuse, lit and burning toward something neither could control. Theodore's pulse hadn't slowed since the rooftop. The photo of him and Julian, hands brushing, eyes locked, hit the gallery's Instagram by morning, racking up thousands of likes and comments speculating about the mystery men. Theodore stared at his phone, the image a punch to his gut. He hadn't meant for their moment to be public, but now it was, and the internet was hungry for more. He sat in his cramped Brooklyn apartment, sketches scattered across the table, the city's morning light filtering through cracked blinds. His phone buzzed again, another notification, this time a text from Julian. "We need to talk. Meet me at the diner on 7th. Noon." Theodore's fingers hovered over the screen. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to protect the fragile scar tissue around his heart. But the other part, the part that still dreamed of Julian's smile, won. He grabbed his jacket and headed out. The diner was a retro throwback, all chrome and red vinyl, the kind of place that smelled like coffee and nostalgia. Julian was already there, in a corner booth, his charcoal sweater swapped for a crisp white button-down, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Theodore slid into the seat across from him, trying to ignore how Julian's presence still made his skin hum. "You saw the photo," Julian said, not meeting Theodore's eyes, his fingers tracing the rim of a coffee mug. "Yeah," Theodore replied, voice tight. "Didn't expect our reunion to go viral." Julian's laugh was bitter. "Nothing about us was ever private. Was it? Not then. Not now." Theodore leaned forward, his voice low. "What do you want? Julian? You show up. Say you still love me. And then what? You go back to your perfect life with Elise and Dad." Julian's eyes snapped up, sharp with pain. "It's not perfect, Theo. It's a cage. After you left, Dad got worse. Controlling, angry. Mom's terrified of him. I stayed because I didn't know how to leave." Theodore's chest ached. He'd spent years hating Julian for not following him, for not fighting. But now, seeing the shadows under Julian's eyes, he wondered what battles Julian had faced alone. "Why didn't you reach out?" Theodore asked. Softer now. I tried, Julian said, voice cracking. I wrote letters, sent emails. Dad intercepted everything. He said you were gone for good, that you didn't want me. Theodore's hands clenched into fists. His father, Richard, had always been a towering figure, charismatic to the world, a tyrant at home. Theodore had been his golden boy until that night, until Richard caught him and Julian tangled together in the guest room. The betrayal in his father's eyes had been worse than the punch. I never stopped wanting you, Theodore said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Julian's gaze softened, and for a moment, they were 18 again, stealing moments in the dark. The waitress interrupted, setting down plates of greasy fries and burgers neither had touched. Theodore forced himself to breathe, to focus. So what now? You're here. I'm here. And the whole damn city's watching. Julian rubbed his temples. There's something else. Mom's been pushing me to do this TV interview. Some family values talk show. Dad's running for state senate, and they want the perfect family image. They don't know I'm here with you. Theodore's stomach twisted. You're not seriously going on that show. I don't have a choice, Julian said, voice strained. If I don't, Dad will lose it. He's already suspicious after seeing us last night. Theodore leaned back, the vinyl squeaking under him. And what happens when they find out about us? About that photo? Julian's silence was answer enough. Theodore pushed his plate away. Appetite gone. You're still scared of him, he said. Not question. Julian's jaw tightened. I'm trying to protect Mom. And you. If Dad finds out we're talking, he'll come for you. Theo. He's powerful now. Connected. Theodore's laugh was sharp. Let him come. I'm not that scared kid anymore. But as they left the diner, Theodore's bravado faltered. He remembered his father's rage, the way it had shattered his life once before. And now, with Julian back, the stakes felt higher. The photo was just the beginning, a spark that could ignite their past and burn down everything they'd built. Back at his apartment, Theodore's phone lit up with a new message. Not Julian, but Clara. The critic, your story's blowing up online. People want to know who the guy in the photo is. Care to comment? Theodore tossed the phone onto the couch. He didn't want to be a headline, but the world had other plans. He pulled up one of his paintings, a chaotic swirl of blues and reds. Julian's silhouette hidden in the strokes. He'd spent years painting his pain, and now it was out there for everyone to see. Theodore's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. By the third day, the rooftop photo had spread beyond the gallery's Instagram, picked up by gossip blogs and art world forums. Who's the mystery man with Theodore Kane? Screamed one headline. Theodore ignored them, but the pressure was mounting, a noose tightening around his fragile new life. He stood in his studio, paint-splattered jeans hanging low, staring at a half-finished canvas. The colors were angry, crimson slashes, deep indigo voids. Julian's reappearance had cracked something open, and every brushstroke felt like a confession. He hadn't seen Julian since the diner, but his stepbrother's words haunted him. I'm trying to protect you. Theodore didn't want protection. He wanted Julian. A knock at the door jolted him. He opened it to find Julian, looking frayed in a gray hoodie, eyes shadowed. Can I come in? Julian asked, voice low. Theodore stepped aside, heart racing. The studio was a mess, canvases stacked against walls, paint cans littering the floor, but Julian's presence made it feel smaller, more intimate. "You look like hell," Theodore said, trying to keep things light. Julian managed a half-smile. "Haven't slept. Dad's been on edge since the gallery." He saw the photo. Theodore's stomach dropped. "And he thinks it's nothing. A coincidence." Julian's voice was tight. "But Mom's freaking out. She keeps asking why I was there. Why I didn't tell her." Theodore crossed his arms, leaning against the table. "What did you tell her?" "That I was curious about your art." Julian's eyes flicked to the canvas behind Theodore, then back to him. "It's true. You know. Your work, it's incredible. It's you." Theodore's throat tightened. He wanted to close the distance, to pull Julian into him and forget the world. But the weight of their past held him back. "Why are you really here, Julian?" Julian stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I can't stay away. I tried, Theo. For 5 years. I tried. But seeing you again, it's like nothing's changed." Everything had changed, though. Theodore could feel it, the years of hurt, the scars they both carried. "Everything's changed," he said, voice rough. "You're still tied to them." To him. Julian flinched, but didn't deny it. "I'm trying to break free. But it's not just about me. Mom's stuck, too. Dad's got her on a leash, money, reputation, everything." Theodore's jaw clenched. He remembered Elise's cold silence when his father kicked him out, how she'd stood by as Theodore packed a single bag. "She didn't help me then. Why should I care about her now?" "Because she's not the enemy," Julian said, eyes pleading. "She's trapped, just like I was. Like I still am." Theodore wanted to argue, but the pain in Julian's voice stopped him. Instead, he reached out, his fingers brushing Julian's arm. The touch was electric, a spark that lit up the dark corners of his heart. Julian didn't pull away. They stood there, inches apart, the air thick with unspoken words. Then Julian's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen, his face paling. "It's Dad. The talk show's tomorrow. He wants me there early." Theodore's chest tightened. "You're still going through with it?" Julian nodded, eyes downcast. "I have to. But I want you to come." Theodore laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "To your family's propaganda show? No way. Please. Theo," Julian said, grabbing his hand. "I need you there. I need someone on my side." Theodore's resolve wavered. Julian's touch, his desperation, was a pull he couldn't resist. "Fine," he said finally. "But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for you." Julian's relief was palpable, his shoulders sagging. "Thank you." The next morning, Theodore found himself in a midtown studio, surrounded by bright lights and bustling crew members. The talk show, Family First, was a saccharine affair, all about American values and togetherness. Theodore sat in the audience, feeling like an outsider in his own story. Julian was on stage, next to Elise and Richard, the perfect family unit. Richard, now grayer but no less imposing, smiled for the cameras, his arm around Elise. Julian looked stiff, his smile forced. The host, a perky woman named Linda, gushed about Richard's Senate campaign. "Tell us, Richard, how do you keep your family so close-knit?" Richard's laugh was polished. "It's about trust, Linda, and standing by each other No matter what, Theodore's stomach churned. He wanted to scream, to expose the lie. But then Linda's eyes landed on Julian. And Julian, you're the golden boy of the family. Any special someone in your life? The question hung in the air, a live wire. Julian's eyes flicked to Theodore, just for a second, and Theodore's heart stopped. He knew that look. Julian was about to do something reckless. The studio lights burned hotter as Julian's silence stretched, the audience leaning forward, sensing a crack in the perfect family facade. Theodore's pulse thundered in his ears, his hands gripping the armrests of his seat. Julian's glance at him had been a warning, a plea, a promise. He wasn't sure which, but it set his nerves on fire. There is someone, Julian said finally, his voice steady but laced with something raw. The cameras zoomed in, Linda's smile widening like a shark scenting blood. Richard's jaw twitched, barely noticeable, but Theodore saw it. He knew that look, his father's anger, coiled and ready to strike. "Oh, do tell," Linda chirped, oblivious to the tension. "Who's the lucky person?" Julian's eyes found Theodore's again, and this time, they didn't waver. "His name is Theodore. He's someone I've loved for a long time." The studio gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the air from the room. Theodore froze, his heart a drumbeat against his ribs. Julian had just said his name on live TV, in front of millions. There was no going back now. Richard's smile vanished, his face a mask of fury. Elise's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes darting between Julian and the audience. Linda, caught off guard, stammered, "Well, that's unexpected. Theodore, is he here today?" Theodore's mouth went dry. Every eye in the studio turned to him, the cameras swinging in his direction. He stood, not because he wanted to, but because his legs moved on instinct, carrying him toward the stage. The crew parted like a sea, and he climbed the steps, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Yeah," Theodore said, his voice rough but clear. "I'm here." The audience erupted, some cheering, some murmuring, others whispering in shock. Linda recovered, her smile back in place, though strained. "This is quite a moment. Theodore, tell us about your relationship with Julian." Theodore glanced at Julian, whose face was a mix of fear and defiance. He wanted to protect him, to shield him from the fallout. But Julian had lit the match. Now they'd both burn. "He's my stepbrother," Theodore said, the words slicing through the air. "And I've loved him since we were kids." The studio fell silent, the weight of his confession sinking in. Richard stood, his chair scraping loudly. "This is enough," he growled, his voice low but venomous. "Julian, we're leaving." "No," Julian said, standing too, his voice firm. "I'm done hiding. Dad, I'm done pretending for your campaign, for your image." Elise reached for Julian's arm, her face pale. "Julian, please. Think about what you're doing." "I have," Julian said, pulling away. "I've thought about it every day for 5 years. I lost Theo once because of you, because of both of you. I'm not losing him again." Theodore's heart swelled, but the moment was cut short. Richard grabbed Julian's shoulder, his grip tight enough to make Julian wince. "You're throwing everything away," Richard hissed. For him, Theodore stepped forward, his own anger flaring. Let him go. Dad. Richard's eyes locked onto Theodore. The same cold fury from 5 years ago. You don't get to call me that. You're no son of mine. The word stung. But Theodore didn't flinch. Good. Because I don't want to be part of your lies anymore. The audience was on its feet now. Some shouting. Others filming on their phones. Linda tried to regain control. Her voice shrill. Let's take a quick break. Folks, but no one was listening. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the chaos. Security moved in, ushering Richard and Elise off stage. But Julian stayed, his hand finding Theodore's. Their fingers intertwined, a small act of defiance in the storm. The crew tried to herd them off, but Julian shook his head. We're not done, he said to Linda, who looked like she was regretting her entire career. Theodore squeezed Julian's hand, grounding himself. You sure about this? He whispered. Julian nodded, his eyes fierce. I've never been more sure. As the cameras followed them, Theodore felt the weight of their past lifting, replaced by something new, hope, fragile but real. They left the stage together, the audience's cheers and jeers fading behind them. Outside the studio, the New York air was crisp, the city alive with possibility. But Theodore knew this was only the beginning. Their story was out there now, raw and unfiltered, and the world would have its say. The fallout was immediate. By evening, clips from Family First flooded the internet. Hashtags like Theo and Julian and Family Scandal trending nationwide. Theodore and Julian holed up in Theodore's apartment. The TV muted, but flashing their faces on every news channel. Theodore's phone was a war zone, texts from gallery owners, voicemails from reporters, even a message from Clara Voss. This is bigger than art now. Call me. Julian sat on the couch, knees pulled up, staring at his own phone. Mom's been calling nonstop, he said, voice hollow. She's begging me to come home. To fix this. Theodore sat beside him, their shoulders brushing. And what do you want? Julian's eyes met his, raw and unguarded. You. This. Us. But I don't know how to do this without hurting her. Theodore understood the guilt, the pull of family, even one as broken as theirs. He took Julian's hand, his thumb tracing circles over Julian's knuckles. You're not responsible for her choices. Or his. Julian nodded, but the worry didn't leave his eyes. Dad's gonna come for us. Theo. He's already spinning this. His campaign team's calling it a family misunderstanding. They're painting you as the problem. Theodore's jaw tightened. He'd expected this. Richard's knack for twisting the narrative. Let him try. The truth's out there now, but the truth was a double-edged sword. Theodore's gallery show was canceled, the owners citing unwanted media attention. His inbox filled with hate mail alongside messages of support. The internet split between those who saw him and Julian as heroes and those who called them abominations. Theodore tried to focus on the good fan art of their rooftop moment. Tweets from strangers saying they'd given them courage, but the hate cut deeper than he'd admit. Julian, meanwhile, was unraveling. He'd quit his job at his father's firm, a bold move that left him untethered. Theodore watched him pace the apartment, restless, like a man waiting for the other shoe to drop. I keep thinking about Mom, Julian said one night, his voice breaking. She's alone with him now. What if he takes it out on her? Theodore pulled him close, their foreheads touching. We'll figure it out. Together. The next morning, they got a call from an unexpected ally, Linda, the talk show host. "I owe you an apology," she said over speakerphone, her voice shaky. "I didn't know how big this would get, but I want to make it right. Come back on the show. Tell your story, your way." Theodore hesitated. The last thing he wanted was more cameras, more scrutiny. But Julian's eyes lit up, a spark of hope. "This could be our chance," Julian said after they hung up. "To take control, to show the world who we are." Theodore wasn't so sure, but he couldn't say no to Julian. They spent the next day preparing, writing notes, rehearsing what they'd say. Theodore wanted to talk about love, about surviving rejection, about building a life from ashes. Julian wanted to expose Richard's hypocrisy, to free his mother from her gilded cage. The studio was quieter this time, the audience smaller but more focused. Linda greeted them warmly, her earlier cheer replaced by genuine respect. "Thank you for coming back," she said, her voice steady. "Let's start with you. Theodore, what's it been like since the last show?" Theodore took a breath, Julian's hand warm in his. "It's been hell," he said honestly, earning a few gasps from the audience. "But it's also been freeing. For years, I hid who I was, how I felt. Now, I'm done hiding." Julian squeezed his hand, taking over. "We lost each other once because of fear, our families, our own. I'm not letting that happen again. And I'm not letting my father control the narrative anymore." The audience clapped, some standing, their support a lifeline. But then Linda's expression shifted. "We have a surprise guest today," she said, and Theodore's stomach dropped. "Richard Kane, your father, has asked to join us." Theodore's blood ran cold as Richard walked onto the stage. His suit impeccable, his smile calculated. Julian stiffened beside him, their hands still clasped. This wasn't a reunion, it was an ambush. Richard's presence filled the studio like a storm cloud, his eyes locking onto Theodore with a mix of disdain and control. Theodore felt 18 again, small under his father's shadow. But Julian's hand in his anchored him. The audience held its breath, sensing the collision about to unfold. Linda, visibly nervous, tried to keep things civil. "Richard, thank you for joining us. What do you want to say to your son and stepson?" Richard's smile was tight. "Practiced. I'm here to set the record straight. This situation has been blown out of proportion. Theodore left our family years ago, and Julian's been confused, caught up in a moment. I want to bring us back together, as a family should be." Theodore's blood boiled. "You didn't bring me back," he said, voice steady but sharp. "You threw me out. Because I love Julian. Don't rewrite history on live TV." The audience murmured, some clapping, others whispering. Richard's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly. "You were young, Theodore. Rebellious. You chose to leave." "Chose?" Theodore shot to his feet, unable to stay seated. "You hit me. You told me I was dead to you. That's not a choice. That's a sentence." Julian stood too, his voice trembling but firm. "And you made me watch. Dad, you made me feel like it was my fault. I've carried that guilt for years, but I'm done. I love Theo, and I'm not ashamed of it." The studio erupted, cheers drowning out the gasps. Richard's face reddened, his control slipping. You're throwing away your future for this mistake, he spat, gesturing at Theodore. Linda tried to intervene, but Julian wasn't done. The only mistake was staying silent. Mom's terrified of you. Dad. She's been calling me, begging me to come back, but she's too scared to leave. That's on you. Richard's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a new voice cut through. He's right. Elise stepped onto the stage, her face pale but resolute. The audience gasped again, the cameras swinging to her. I've been silent too long, she said, her voice shaking. Richard, you've controlled us all, me, Julian, Theodore. I'm done. Theodore's heart stopped. Elise, the woman who'd stood by as he was cast out, was finally standing up. Richard's face twisted, his voice low and dangerous. Elise, don't do this. But Elise shook her head, tears in her eyes. I should have protected Theodore. I should have protected Julian. I failed them both. But I'm here now. The audience was on its feet, clapping, some crying. Theodore felt Julian's hand tighten in his, a lifeline in the chaos. Linda, sensing the moment, stepped back, letting the family unravel in real time. Theodore turned to Elise, his voice soft. Why now? Elise's eyes met his, full of regret. Because I saw you two together on that rooftop. I saw love, real love, and I remembered what it felt like to be free. I want that for Julian. For you. For me. Richard stormed off the stage, his campaign in tatters, the cameras following his retreat. Theodore pulled Julian close, their foreheads touching, the world fading to just them. Elise joined them, hesitant at first, then wrapping her arms around them both. The audience cheered, a wave of support that felt like absolution. As the show ended, Theodore and Julian left the studio hand in hand, Elise beside them. The city stretched out before them, vast and unforgiving. But for the first time, Theodore felt whole. They lost years, endured pain, but they'd found each other again. And now, with Elise's courage, they were building something new, a family not bound by blood or lies, but by love. In the weeks that followed, Richard's campaign collapsed under the weight of the scandal, his hypocrisy laid bare. Theodore's art found new life, galleries clamoring to show the work of the scandal artist whose love story had captured hearts. Julian moved into Theodore's apartment, their days filled with quiet moments, painting, laughing, healing. Elise started over, free from Richard's shadow, her bond with Julian and Theodore slowly mending. One evening, as the sun set over Brooklyn, Theodore stood on his apartment's fire escape, Julian's arms around him. The city glowed below, a canvas of light and shadow. We made it, Theodore whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Julian kissed his temple, his voice a promise. We're just getting started. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs raw, real, and worth every fight. And as the world watched, Theodore knew they'd never hide again.